It is time for Money Power Politics. We have been covering President Trump's pardon of Changpeng Zhao, founder of the world's largest crypto exchange, Binance. You know him as CZ. This guy served 4 months in jail after pleading guilty to enabling money laundering on his platform. Binance was forced to settle with the Justice Department for more than $4 billion. And Binance did help boost Trump's own crypto venture, World Liberty Financial. Last night on 60 Minutes, the president was directly asked about this pardon, which took place within the last 2 weeks. And here's part of what he said.
I don't know who he is. I know he got a 4-month sentence or something like that. And I heard it was a Biden witch hunt.
In 2025, his crypto exchange Binance helped facilitate a $2 billion purchase of World Liberty Financial's stablecoin. And then you pardoned CZ. How do you address the appearance of pay for play?
Well, here's the thing. I know nothing about it because I'm too busy doing the other.
But I can only tell you that. But he got a pardon?
No, I can only tell you this. My sons are into it. I'm glad they are because it's probably a great industry, crypto. I think it's good. You know, they're running a business. They're not in government.
I know nothing about it. I'm pretty sure only the president has a pardoning power. Back with us tonight, Brooke Masters, U.S. Managing Editor for the Financial Times, and Max Chafkin, Bloomberg Business Week journalist and host of Bloomberg's Everybody's Business podcast. Are you kidding me? Binance has the deepest of deep ties to the Trump family through their crypto platform. Within a week from him getting pardoned, Binance was then promoting World Liberty Financial on their platform. Yeah. Do you buy, I don't know who this guy is? Because I assure you, Mr. President, Don Jr. and Eric do.
I mean, there was a little bit of, oh, that guy, after they mentioned the, major investment, the $2 billion that Binance helped facilitate to Trump's stablecoin. There are lots of reasons why the president should know who CZ is, starting with the fact that he's one of the richest people on the planet. He owns the leading cryptocurrency exchange, and also because his company was implicated in some really, really serious things relating to national security. And that is the charge that CZ pled guilty to. He pled guilty to failing to maintain a money laundering protocol. And while that was going on, according to the government, huge sums of money went to Hamas and other bad groups. And that is what led to this.
Yet the president says, I don't know this guy. What does this say about how this administration handles pardons? Everybody was outraged over Joe Biden and the auto pen. And 2 weeks later, Donald Trump, don't know the guy, never heard of him. I'm doing the other stuff.
I mean, I think he wants deniability. Their record on pardons is quite amazing. I mean, there are dozens and dozens of people who have in some way worked with the Trumps or worked with them in the past, or they're loyal now, and they're getting pardons. I mean, if you suck up to the Trumps, you get a pardon. I mean, George Santos got a pardon. I mean, that guy, I mean, New Yorkers know.
That is something. All right, new topic. The Congressional Budget Office is now estimating that the government shutdown could cost the economy between $7 and $14 billion. The Chamber of Commerce says more than 65,000 small businesses are losing $3 billion per week. How bad can this get?
It could get really, really bad. The thing about a shutdown is if they reopen and then pay everybody back pay relatively quickly, virtually all of the trouble disappears from the economy. You get a makeup.
They don't pay back the small businesses. They don't pay back the restaurants that are next door to the museums. They don't pay, I mean.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing is the longer it goes on, the harm becomes, it extrapolates and it gets worse and worse and worse.
There's a new NBC poll out that says 66% of Americans say the president has fallen short on inflation and the cost of living. I was talking about it in the last block. Like, these are some of the core things that people voted for him on. We're not even a year in. How is it that we got here so quickly on the economy?
I think a lot of it actually goes back to those first few months with Doge, where you just saw this kind of indifference to the business of government. And you saw Donald Trump and Elon Musk running around and essentially saying, we don't need this, we don't need that. And I think when you run into a government shutdown where you'd sort of expect the president to be trying to bring the economy back, it's hard to do that credibly when you've sent all these other signals. You layer on top of that all of the uncertainty, the tariffs and so on. It's been rough for small businesses.
Let's talk about the tariffs, because Bank of America is now saying that there is clear evidence that tariffs have raised consumer prices. At the same time, There's a new Wall Street Journal piece out that says tariff-induced inflation is not as bad as we thought it was going to be. How do you make sense of this?
I think it's timing. The truth is, the biggest companies front-loaded all of their purchases and took advantage of the uncertainty in between Liberation Day and the actual imposition of the tariffs. So for a while, we have not yet seen the tariff impact. Small businesses who couldn't do that are already having to charge more. So that's why you hear the small businesses screaming. People who shop at Walmart are probably not feeling it quite that badly. People who shop at their local bodega are.
All right, new topic. The U.S. government just inked an $80 billion deal with Westinghouse for nuclear power plants that the government believes are critical to advancing artificial intelligence. What do you make of this?
I mean, the industry certainly believes that. And we've seen a bunch of Donald Trump's sort of close allies advocate for these very policies. You know, I haven't looked that closely at this deal, but I think there are a lot of questions about how it was made, why the companies were chosen, how the government wound up taking this, you know, because it's set up that the government will take a stake in this project. It's another one of these kind of hastily made, or at least feels hastily made deals that seems to benefit people with close ties to the White House and with maybe uncertain benefit for taxpayers. Now, if they build a big nuclear power plant quickly, I grant that it could be good. But again, I think there are a lot of questions.
It's about who are they doing it with and why, right? The deal does not say anything about how much American taxpayers are on the hook for. And we also have another case, as Max was just laying out, of the administration, while giving us no transparency, choosing winners and losers. Not just the companies they're choosing to work with, the companies they're not choosing to work with, what it means to them. Isn't this a risk for the American taxpayer?
Absolutely. I mean, nuclear power...
And free markets capitalism?
Well, first of all, nuclear power plants are famous for overrunning. And these, I mean, there's no reason to expect that these aren't going to have cost overruns as well. The other thing is, this thing is apparently getting funded with money from the Japanese trade deal, and nobody quite knows how that's going to be connected as well. And I mean, we have talked about whether in the past whether the U.S. ought to have an industrial policy. And there are a lot of people who believe we should, and we should be picking winners and losers. In general, countries that have industrial policies have been less successful than the United States.
You want to do it? Great. Right now, the method to do it is book yourself an appointment at Howard Lutnick's office and see if he can roll the dice and make a deal. That's not setting policy.
Certainly isn't the way most people would expect it to be done.